Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, June 19th, 2019 to order. Can we have a roll call, please, Mrs. Larson?
Yes. Mr. Gamble.
Here.
Mr. Nielsen.
Here.
Ms. Evans.
Here.
Mr. Sprague.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
And Mrs. Witkowski.
She'll be about half an hour late.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The meeting has been properly posted. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. I'd first like to request from the board that item 8C, the FSOEA wage increase, be removed from tonight's agenda because the item is not ready to be have action taken on tonight, and that will be probably be ready in July. And the second item I'd like to ask of the board is that we move item 9A, the personnel and policy 5315, to go immediately following item 7, school board calendar. So that would be right above 8, reports, presentations, and other school board business, so that we have our school nurses here and so that they could not have to go through the entire agenda. So I'm looking for approval of the agenda with those 2 items. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gamble. Is there any discussion on that request? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 is community comment. Is there any comment from the community? All right, hearing none. Item 5 is consent agenda. Would any board member like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gamble. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sprague. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 is school board announcements. Do we have any announcements tonight?
I just have one announcement that we will have a school board float in the 4th of July parade. I have not been updated as to our number or our position in the parade, but we will have a float or a car.
I was going to
should
say a
I'm
float.
sorry. Sorry.
I was making a note
I'm
for a
making a
float.
float.
Don't leave my
Drive by my house, come see. No, I'm not making a float. But we are going to have a car. Mr. Gamble has volunteered to drive his vehicle, so we will be doing that.
Okay, great.
Right.
I'll let you all know where our position is when I get that information, though. I'm so sorry I gave you a
Sure.
heart attack.
We can do a float.
Tissue paper ready.
It's too rainy.
Yeah, thank you. Any other announcements? All right, thank you. Item 7 is school board calendar. We have a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, July 10th, 2019, here at the Education and Community Center at 6:00 p.m. And then we have a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, August 21st, 2019, here at the ECC at 5:30 p.m. And that will be followed by the annual meeting at 6:00 p.m. Okay, and then now I'm going to move to item 9, school board liaison reports, personnel and policy, policy 5315, school wellness policy, and that is an action item. And then, let's see, so we'll invite Ms. Call and Ms. O'Neill up, our school nurses. And, sorry, I have to find it on here. Okay. So, I reviewed this policy after receiving the draft, and you notice it's a very long policy, and I just want to say, I received it in the form that most of the policy was still in administrative rules, and after reviewing the guidelines, I recommended that the policy all be put into policy, because that is how it's recommended to be. And I consulted with Dr. Miller on that too, and she agreed. And our school nurses did a lot of work on that, and I think the board would probably like to hear some of your recommendations for the policy.
Yep.
So-
Thank you for having us. So I'm Lori O'Neill, and this is my partner Molly Call. We are your district nurses, and we're here tonight to present the student wellness policy for you guys, which is a collaborative effort that we've put together with our student wellness committee. And that, of course, that purpose of the committee is to focus on student wellness, which has been running for about the past year and a half under the guidance of Dr. Miller and Mrs. Preman. And initially, our committee's work was focused on a couple specific priorities, but we have kind of looked at our goals, which have led us to evaluating the policy to ensure that we are aligned with the district coherence plan, DPI recommendations, CDC recommendations. So after reviewing some of those best practices and the requirements and recommendations, you'll see our updated policy here. It contains, of course, some required elements that DPI requires that we have, in addition to some specific things that we wanted to include to help focus on the student wellness of our kiddos here in Franklin. So a couple things that we'll talk about briefly before we open it up to questions. For our school nutrition, we want to ensure that our nutrition standards, both at lunch, not only at lunch, I should say, but in the food that students eat throughout the school day, can be healthy and will lead them to have, improved academic performance to promote a lifetime of healthy eating habits. Regarding nutrition education, we met with health teachers, FIAD teachers. We collaborated with Mr. Reuter about the curriculum that our students receive regarding nutrition, and also looked at innovative ways that we could incorporate some of that education, not in a specific health class.
And then going forward, our wellness committee overall made efforts to expand our policy statements around physical wellness with a goal of reducing childhood obesity and all of the related comorbidities that we would be concerned about. But additionally, with the knowledge that we know that opportunities for activity being provided to children throughout the day are proven to impact their behavior and academic performance, and looking at how we can make sure that we're offering that to children. Excuse me. The next area, the area of wellness promotion. We really, as a wellness committee overall, are looking to emphasize the work that we plan to prioritize going forward. Ideally, we want to impact support available to improve the mental, behavioral, and emotional health of children in our community, in addition to optimizing how we can partner with families and our community going forward to keep our kids healthy. The final section of the policy is intended to offer guidance regarding marketing regulations that we must adhere to, wellness activity communication standards for our group and the district, and expectations for policy evaluation. So what our wellness committee looks at going forward is this continuous cycle of evaluation of our policy and practices, implementation of new or improved or the same practices, and then measuring the outcomes of those practices in regards to student wellness, and going back to our policy, how does that measure our policy, and what new evidence is available to us that might enhance how we do things. What questions do you guys have about any of the revisions that you've seen or any of the content within the policy?
Who is on your committee?
That's a great question. So the committee that actively meets currently was formerly led by Mrs. Freeman. And then Christine Cody actually was the administrative representative, so she will continue to participate in our committee. Both of us as the district nurses, we have a PE teacher from the high school, a PE teacher at the elementary level, our food services manager, a
High school administrator, special education teacher.
Mr. Hine, the director of athletics and activities. We recently added a parent.
School psych. School psych, school counselor. Sorry, I'm trying to run the list to make sure.
The
we
meeting
catch
request
everybody.
list.
Right.
Yep. So I feel like we have a fairly diverse group of professionals running elementary through high school. that we meet with regularly.
One of the things that we found pretty fascinating is that there are no regulatory bodies that mandate that we have a mental health professional as part of our group, and the regulations regarding what your policy has to address in regards to mental health support is almost non-existent. So we were really excited that we have Catherine Reed and a middle school psych who are both very excited to engage in this work as well.
Mr. Sprague, when the policy came to me, it does require that there be a school board member and a parent. So the one element that was missing was the school board member. And with all these items now, with all this policy now in policy versus administrative rules, one issue on this with it being in policy is that the wellness committee updates the policy and then brings it to us for approval. So we have the board member that will be on here will be from Pupil Services Liaison every year, because that's where this falls in student services. And then if that liaison can't make it, then an alternate member. But, so this group recommends this policy to the board, and most of these things are required elements, almost all of this is required elements, so there isn't much that we would say that we would change. There are a few things in here that you have fashioned to our school district, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, we do need the voice of the community, and we need, as a board member on here, to be also a voice of the community too, so that's where we fit in this group, so.
And I think you mentioned the length of the policy. There's a lot of best practices around student wellnesses that aren't necessarily mandated items to be within
Right.
your policy, and that's where we really look heavily to all of our key stakeholders and what should we be focusing on.
I was making a note as you were going through the policy here a little bit, and specifically looking at decreasing the incidence of obesity among the kids in the district, and I just made a note, measure now with a question mark, but then at the tail end, you were talking about how you do have, you do some measurements in the policy to see how it's working and then go back and review. Could you maybe speak to that a little bit about what do we do now, or what were you planning on doing about, this is a great goal to have, but how do we actually
Sure.
measure that?
So in partnership with the Franklin Health Department, we do vision, hearing, and BMI screenings for K2, 4, and 6 annually. So we get that information from the health department to track. We can track specifically to school or grade level with separating that out with boy and girl to just kind of find out where our average BMI is, throughout the district per grade level. So that's I think a great way that we can continue to look at that very specific data.
But only up to grade 6? Okay. Is there a reason why it only goes up to grade 6? There's got to be a reason. That's fine. Only to grade 6, okay. Thank you.
How often does the committee anticipate meeting to discuss the wellness issues, not necessarily update the policy, but
Sure.
discuss the issues?
Currently, we've been meeting monthly. We did not meet in June, and we are not going to meet in July, but the plan is we have a meeting on the calendar for August already, and I think we have a really dedicated group that is very passionate about student wellness, so we definitely want to continue meeting. We have a lot of great things that we'd like to continue to do.
And we have at times, depending on what it is that we're looking at, have done some intermittent subgroup work outside of those meeting times, so depending on what we're working towards.
So you've got a parent member on here and a student?
Students, because of the nature of what we talk about at some of the meetings, we are planning on and have incorporated them kind of outside of meeting time to solicit their feedback on things that will impact them. So we meet during the school day. It'd be pretty challenging to have one consistent student attend, but we bring topics to them as appropriate to get their input on whatever that might be.
And as far as the board member, then, are you on personnel? You're on
Actually,
people
yeah.
ser-
As
Mr.
soon as you said
Nielsen
that, I was like, oh,
is
really?
this year's liaison for pupil services. So,
Great.
any other questions? Then I'm looking for a motion to approve revised board policy 5315, student wellness. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Larson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sprague. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you, guys.
Now we will move back to item 8, reports, presentations, and other school board business. Item 8A, approval of the CISA 1 contract for 2019-20. Dr. Miller.
So this is our annual contract with CISA 1. We, of course, work with CISA to provide services to our students. This would include some alternative placement seats and some support for students with unique abilities. So I would ask for a motion to approve the 2019-20 contract with CISA 1.
So I'm looking for the motion to approve the CISA 1 2019-20 contract. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Larson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nielsen. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is item 8B, the approval of the SWSA agreement for 2019-20. Dr. Miller.
This is also agreement that we enter into annually with the Southeastern Wisconsin School Alliance. I've provided you some information about that organization. It is a organization of superintendents and board members who meet once a month and primarily focus on legislative matters. Ms. Evans attended the meetings with me last year, and Ms. Witkowski is attending them with me this year. And it does provide us an ability to have a voice, to meet legislators, to influence what's happening on a state level. So I think it's very valuable for us to have this information, and I would recommend that we continue that partnership. So I'm asking for a motion to approve the agreement with the Southeastern Western School Alliance for 2019-20.
So for the record, I just want to say Mrs. Witkowski arrived at the meeting at 6:17 PM. And then I'm looking for a motion to approve the SWSA agreement for 2019-20. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Was that Mr. Gamble? Okay, motion by Mr. Gamble. Is there a second?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Larson, second by Mrs. Larson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mrs. Witkowski, just to update you, next item would be the approval of the FSOEA wage increase, and that is being moved now to July meeting.
Oh, it is, okay.
Okay, so now we're on item 8D, approval of the 2019-20 Board of Education meeting dates. You'll notice an updated calendar is at your place. The changes on it were just a typo, and then the August date is changed to 8/19/2020 instead of two dates on there. So, first I'll look for a motion to approve the 2019-2020 Board of Education meeting dates, and then we'll have discussion if there is any. Do I have a motion to approve the calendar?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lewis. Is there any discussion on the calendar? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, and then now we'll move to 8E, the 2019-20 budget presentation by Mr. Milzer.
Tonight is the first draft of the budget for 2019-20. It's attached in board docs, and I'll show just a little bit of it on the screen as we go along. So I'll just I just want to point out that the table of contents is interactive and that you can click on any of the links on the left-hand side and go directly to those pages. And then moving on to assumptions. This is the first draft of the budget, and this is our first look at it. You'll have 3 weeks to go through and become familiar with it, ask questions if you have them. And then we'll be back in August for the annual meeting with draft number 2. And the final draft is in October when we receive our final numbers from the state. Everything is pretty much estimated at this point. We don't have a lot of solid information. That's usual for this time of year to have that. And the budget is really the culmination of all of the things that we talked about throughout the year, all of the different programs and initiatives, 4K. All of those costs are in there, moving the 6th grade to the middle school and redoing that program for them in there as well. And this is the budget that gets us started. It will change by the time we get to October just because of the information from the state, and we'll have much more solid information on the people that we've hired for next year. So I'll introduce the budget tonight and then allow you to look at it. In the assumptions for enrollment, this is important because it's a factor in the revenue limit calculation, and we're projecting an extra 178 resident students, and that's mainly due to 4K coming in. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had that many. The other big thing is the state budget for 2019-21, the biennial state budget, is still in the works. The governor had proposed some really nice things for public schools that would take care of a lot of the problems that we have financially with expenses not matching up with revenues. The Joint Finance Committee of the legislature did not go as far as the governor did, but went partway, which is good, but they didn't really put enough in for us to even cover the inflation factor for the year. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's good. We're glad we got it. But on the other hand, going into the future, it looks like they might do more, and that would be good. Having our expenses, which are based on CPI, match up with our revenue based on CPI would be very helpful. In 4K, we have 188 students currently registered, and I'm sure they'll continue to register during the summer right through August. In the benefits category, our health insurance rates increased by 4.9%, and our dental rates increased by 5%. Then taking a look at our revenue for next year and breaking it into a couple of categories. The blue is the state and federal revenue. The green is the local tax revenue, and the red is the local non-tax revenue. And you can see that the majority of it is in the green and the blue. And the blue really dictates, based on our revenue limit, how much we need for a local tax levy. So if that blue section from the state gets larger, the green section that we provide locally gets smaller, and vice versa, although we don't like to see it go that way. On the expenditure side, this is pretty typical. You can see that salaries and benefits are at about 76%, purchase services at about 17.7%, and other supplies and so forth at about 6%. We have a lot of staff working with children, and certainly a labor-intensive kind of thing when you're in K-12 public education. And then looking at the tax effects or the tax situation, we're looking at the total tax levy going up projected 1.9% for next year. And I would like to point out that we have an asterisk there showing that the long-term debt, all of it was approved by referendum. And if you'll recall, for the tax levy last year, we helped smooth that out by working with our long-term debt tax levy. And this year that came down while the piece for educating children went up just a bit. Translating that to what a homeowner might see, for an assessed value of $100,000, the school's tax levy would go up $20.75, for recreation 87 cents, and $200,000 is really just twice that, depending on the assessed value of the property. And I'd also like to point out that we do have our estimates on the right-hand side. As I mentioned, we don't really have any of the numbers, but we've projected all of them for the fall. We have a small graph of tax rate history, 5 years, showing a decline again this year in the tax rate. And then after that, we have the adoption version of the budget. This is the version that the board would vote on in July to adopt. There is a more detailed version later on. And as I said, you've got 3 weeks to look that over, really the entire packet, and let me know if you have any questions. And then I'll send the answers out to everyone so that everyone has that information. And that's it for this evening.
Can I just ask a basic question? What % increase do we have for expenditures, and what % increase do we have for state aids?
That's,
Yes,
what's that?
that's my question. % increase for expenditures,
It's
and
in the detailed section.
you know where that, what page would that be on?
Well,
I just thought maybe you knew.
how large is that? Let's see, for most of our state sources, we were looking at minus 0.3%, equalization aid, an increase of 4.3%.
You said minus,
I did. And,
but equalization aid is up 4.3%?
yes.
Okay.
And in expenditures, it's 3.6% increase
Okay.
in total for Fund 10.
Jim, can you go back to that adoption version?
Yep.
First page. Yeah, right there.
Uh-huh.
So the yearbook, bookstore, class project materials, 68,000 in 17, 18, 42,000 in 18, 19, and 280,000 in 19, 20.
Yes. The 42 is probably low, and in addition here, we're looking at providing additional services for other school districts around us. Now that we have our fiber connection to the internet, we've been approached by a number of districts that do not have that and would like to have a couple of strands of our fiber. And so we're looking at, I've projected some revenue from that to have them use those. And they would be ones that we wouldn't be using anyway.
So the revenue wouldn't offset the expense to show a net, you're gonna show the revenue gross in revenue?
I have to.
You have to.
That's the way
Ah,
school
okay.
district accounting works.
All right, I get it, okay.
And the expense for it is really in last year's budget. Anyway, so there isn't any expense in this budget for that.
Okay.
But I think it'll be a good thing for us in the future.
Well, yeah, if you can get some subsidy on stuff to buy anything, so. So we'll just look for it in the revenue section as a revenue line that wouldn't be there then historically, right?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other new revenue sources that you might want to highlight?
The 4K grant that we're receiving, we've been told that there are no other districts that are starting it, but we don't have any more information than that. The Department of Public Instruction is kind of reinventing itself now that the governor left and took a lot of the high-ranking officials from the Department of Public Instruction with him to the state level. Everybody is moving up, and there's a lot of learning going on, a lot of confusion, and I think maybe in previous years we would have had an answer to our question, but this year we don't yet.
How much is that? Is it one time, or is it going to?
It's over 2 years. So in 630, 640 House of Corrections state grants, you can see we're going from 876,000 to 1.3 million. That includes the 4K number. I don't have the exact amount off the top of my head, but we're using, in our original projections, we were using a much smaller number per student, and for this one, we're using kind of the high end, since no other districts will be receiving it. Okay?
I just have one comment to either Dr. Miller or you, that the board did request that we have an organizational chart in this budget document, so,
Oh, we can put that in there.
yeah, especially in time for the annual meeting, so.
Mhm.
You have color, more color in this one, Jim.
Oh, you're picked up.
The,
I noticed.
the tax infographic was courtesy of Ms. Bowden, who did that for me. I just gave her the facts, and she made it look good, so I thank her for that. I appreciate that.
Oh, you didn't do that? Oh,
I did not do that.
yeah, I know.
Thank you. And then item 8F, payment to Fund 46, also an action item, Mr. Milzer.
We created Fund 46 5 years ago for funding our long-term capital projects and purchases, and this is the first year we would be able to use those funds for anything. That was just a rule that DPI had. You had to wait 5 years in order to be able to use it. And all of our projects are timed for this. Our land purchase is timed for this. So we're looking at transferring $3.2 million from Fund 10 to Fund 46 yet this month. And that will create a total large enough to do our land purchases and the locker room renovation at the high school for the FIAD and swim locker rooms. So I would just need a motion to approve the transfer of $3.2 million from Fund 10 to Fund 46, and that does leave enough fund balance in Fund 10 that we would have plenty of fund balance to lean on yet if we had any kind of problems.
So I'm looking for a motion to move $3.2 million from Fund 10 to Fund 46. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gamble, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nielsen. Is there any discussion?
So how much was in there? How much is left? Can you tell us how much?
How much is what?
How much is left? Is it
Left
just
of what?
left of the in Fund 10? Fund 46.
How much is in Fund 46 now?
Yep. I can do the math,
About
I guess.
2.3 million.
Well, we haven't
I would
spent
say.
anything yet.
We haven't spent anything out of it.
We haven't been able to touch that money.
You were saying you were
Just gonna add
transferring
it
it
to
from 10 to 46.
Right.
How much is in 10?
10, yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
You said 46.
Well, again, that depends on the time of year you're measuring it. At the end of the year, we will probably have 22 million, something like that. When we get to January, almost all of that's gone, so we'll probably have 3 or 4 million.
How much is in there right now that we're, if we're saying we're going to be transferring 3.2 right now, how much is in there right now?
Is Fund 10 the general fund, or is it this?
Yes.
Okay,
The
our question is, how much is in 46, Fund 46?
About close to 2.4 million
But we're transferring 3.2, right?
Mm-hmm.
into it.
Into, not out.
Oh,
of.
okay, okay. Oh, I see.
Into, we're adding to it.
So then, where are we, so we're spending those project dollars out of 46?
Yes.
So when do we authorize or appropriate that money? Is it in this budget that we just saw, or how does that happen? When do we,
Yes, you're authorizing the transfer tonight, and as part of the budget contains,
that is in this budget?
that's in the budget under Fund 46.
Okay, all right.
You mentioned some of the projects that we're going to be spending that Fund 46 money on. Is any of the pool stuff in there? Not the locker rooms, but?
I'm still a little confused, sorry. We're transferring 3.2 into 46, but the rules were, because we were accumulating in 46, right? We were putting money in there, we're not putting aside.
Right?
This is the first year we can spend it.
Mhm.
But we're not just spending what we put in there, we're putting money in there and spending that. Is that right?
Right.
How is that any different than just appropriating the fund balance where it is and spending? What's the difference?
If you're spending it all at one time, it kind of reduces the effect on Fund 10 or changes in your equalization aid due to what you're spending at any given year.
Because that expenditure doesn't count in the
Doesn't count.
formulation.
Right. Fund 46 doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
That's only for capital projects? Or like you
Capital
said,
projects, land
land
purchases,
purchases.
maintenance, those types of things.
But I'm guessing that those expenditures in Fund 10 would raise our cost per pupil probably, and you shared.
If we did these projects out of Fund 10?
Correct.
Yeah, then it would raise it,
Which would make us more eligible for aid, or,
less eligible.
less eligible because, okay.
Yeah, that was the whole point in creating Fund 46.
Because it's outside the cap and.
Right.
It's outside the cap also.
Yep.
There aren't any restrictions as far as using money in Fund 46? I mean, you can transfer it in and use it immediately? Like you said, there was a 5-year, we could establish the fund, and 5 years later, we could take money out of it. Is there a 5-year waiting period for monies you transfer into the fund?
No, it was just a 5-year waiting period initially,
Okay.
and then as you put money in, you can spend it.
How much money are we spending that we put into it? Are we spending $3.2 million, or are we spending more than that?
I think it's about 5.3.
Okay, so we're spending almost the entirety of it.
Right, right. Yeah, and we'll keep accumulating in the future. Each year, we'll be putting money into that because our large project list is long.
And this is pretty clear in the budget. I mean, I haven't seen the budget till tonight, so I don't know. Would I be surprised to see it pretty clear where we find those projects?
Then Fund 46. Just-
Any other discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Gamble,
Say aye.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Ms. Evans,
Aye.
Mr. Sprague,
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
and Mrs. Witkowski.
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Milzer. All right, we'll move on to item 8G, the communications report. Ms. Bowden?
Hi. Thank you for your time this evening. I just wanted to point out to you your communications folder in front of you. I wanted to give you a couple of minutes to take a look at that. I will talk through the highlights here over the next several minutes, but I just want you to realize there are a few data points on the left side of the folder, and then on the right side, those are just some samples of materials that has been a part of our work this year. I want to start by taking a few minutes to talk about what a typical day or week might look like for me in my communications role. Certainly there's a seasonal quality to the work that we do during the school year and now through the summer months. But now that I'm wrapping up my first year, I feel like I can kind of give you a feeling of what a week looks like. First and foremost, on Monday mornings, we've held our directors' meetings, which was very helpful to bring the group up to speed from the previous week and hear about the ongoings of the upcoming week. And that would help me to work to pull together content for a number of the ongoing communications that we deliver. So we have our weekly newsletters that are distributed by the schools. I help with the content for the middle school updates and our social media posts, our direct mail communications, our email communications that go out on behalf of Dr. Miller, and the building administrators. I support those pieces as well. And then we have our Franklin Find, which is our staff newsletter that goes out monthly. We have our opening doors, and you'll see these samples in your folders. Opening doors goes out quarterly, and that goes out through the city newsletter. So all of these pieces, there are a number of parts and pieces that go into the development of this. I'm very fortunate to have the support of colleagues and different people throughout the district. Ms. Evans has been a big support to me as well, pulling together the information that I need and then starting to build that content and having some back and forth with my coworkers to make sure that the information is accurate and it's palatable to our audiences. I do a lot in terms of pulling together assets, logos, photos, videos, different types of files that various people throughout the district are asking for. So that's regarding the ongoing communications, but we also have quite a bit of just project work. For example, the 4K trifold piece that was put together is, it has a one-time delivery or a couple of time a year delivery, but it's quite a bit of work to pull it together. Mr. Reuter and Ms. Shannon were instrumental in getting this piece out in time for the parent information that took place in May. So once all of that content is created and signed off on and we agree on it, I spend time with coworkers just monitoring the publicity around these pieces. So watching the social media pages where we're posting this information, watching the website. I have found that a number of our families prefer to communicate via Facebook email. I actually get more inquiries from parents in particular via our Facebook page than I do just at my email here in the district. So that's been an interesting way to dialogue with families and get feedback and input from them. Other other one-off projects that we've been working on are, for example, the development of the values icons, the new Wildcats logo. We put up the flags saying register now when 4K was approved or shortly thereafter. I support the team in pulling together all of the information for kindergarten roundup or back-to-school registration, summer school registration. There's a number of pieces that are put in place to make those communications come together, and I'm a part of that process. Being in a support role, there are, lots of emails and phone calls that come in during the week that aren't necessarily anticipated. Requests for things like dialoguing about sensitive communications and making sure that we're getting the language just right. Setting up accounts for new employees so that they can access their staff login information on our website. And taking employees down when that's appropriate, keeping all of the pages of the website updated, working with the different departments to make sure that that information is accurate and clear to the best of our ability. I'm very excited to say that I will be working with a third party called Site Improve. It's an annual investment in which they will work with us in terms of quality assurance with our website. So it's really great. They will crawl our website, all 247 pages of it, and help us to be sure we don't have broken links, that we're meeting all of our accessibility requirements, that there are no misspellings, things like that. So it will be a really useful tool for me and just help our website to be more polished overall. So we provide quite a bit of information to our families, to the community, generally speaking, and even to staff and students back and forth between the different buildings. In addition to this work, I have participated in a number of committees to make sure that I have the latest information and I'm in the know about a lot of the exciting things that we have going on. So I have been a part of the district leadership team, working with Mr. Beckler and Mr. Volo on coherence plan goal number 5 and number 6. Those are community-facing goals in terms of gaining new partners for our high school Sabre Business Alliance, and then also establishing a benchmark for community pride. So I've been involved in delivering the survey that goes out to the community, monitoring those results, ensuring that we're responding to the feedback that's coming in from community members. I was involved with the project training, safety committee, and all of the information that I'm gathering from those different committees, I'm working to boil down into communications for our audiences. So that's a week. Any, number of things can be going on at any given time. It's definitely a position that requires agility, and I really enjoy that aspect of the role, being on my feet and getting out to the buildings and having opportunity to respond and dialogue with coworkers and community members. One thing that I do want to take you through is just a couple of data points on our online and email communications. So on the left side, you'll see the first page is just 2 quick snapshots of the Google Analytics that I look at on a pretty regular basis with our website. The first chart is showing the number of people who are coming to our website, and that the graph up top is a nice graph. It's a good graph to see. The reason that we like it is there's a lot of consistency. The dips are weekends, but what you'll see is throughout the year, this data was pulled from September 3rd until today. We're pretty consistent in terms of our users coming to our website for information. So it's a good thing. I'd like to see us continue to raise that level, but we're not seeing any dips, which, doesn't create any concerns there. The little pop-out screen there is meant to show our highest performing pages. So in slot number 1 at our Franklin website, we are getting the most visits to our parents and students tab, and then, going to student links. So it's good. It's good to see that our families, our parents and students are getting the information that our teachers are providing to them via those resources. Number 2 is blank because that's the homepage, so there is no extension. So we've got a lot of traffic coming there. We do have a little bit of a bounce rate. Bounce rate being, people come to the site, they land on the homepage, they're there for a second, they don't engage with our site at all, and they leave. So that's something that we can look at in terms of performance is improving our homepage and providing information that our users are looking for.
Do you have a question on that?
Yeah.
So I was just thinking about that. So if someone has the Franklin district as their page that opens up automatically, when they open up their Chrome, for instance,
Yep.
they're always going to hit that page, but they may not engage in it because then they're going to go to wherever they're going to go.
They're gonna go to wherever they go.
So you might always have that as a bounce rate being high because it's not really a page they're engaging on purpose anyway.
Yeah, but a bounce rate indicates that a user came to the site and didn't click on any of the links. They didn't go to the parent page, for example.
Right.
They got to the site and then they backed right out.
So if you have the district website set as the page you go to when you open Chrome,
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Yes.
And then
not a
you're gonna
bookmark,
go
but it's
to-
their landing page.
so
Yeah,
that may
could
be
contribute.
something that could explain some of that.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. That could contribute to that rate.
Yeah.
How much of that, along those same lines, my daughter opens up her Chromebook and it goes to that page. I assume at least half the students have that as their homepage when they open their Chromebook. Where does that data, what does that data show? Where is
Yeah.
that?
I talked with Luann about that. So at the elementary level, the page that they land on is different than the page that the middle and the high schoolers land on. But you're right, I mean, we want that to be immediately accessible to them, and so that will contribute to this being one of the higher performing pages. But, that's okay. It's okay that that's coming to the surface as the most trafficked page. What it means is that our students are getting there first and foremost. They're not having to go to the website, go to a link, and find it. They're getting there through their Chromebooks.
What I'm asking is, what if these students are opening their Chromebook 10 times a day, where is that, of these number of page views, what percentage is that of these number of page views? And we probably don't know the answer, but I would guess it's a large portion
Sure.
of them.
Yep. So when we look at these analytics, there are 2 different types of views. There's a page view and then there's a unique page view, just like there are visitors and there are unique visitors. So Google does a really good job of saying to us who are consuming the data, here's how many page views you had and here's how many were unique in any given day. So if I, as a student, log in 10 times, that will be represented as 1 unique page view in that day.
Got it.
So, and there's even an example of that. I mean, these are, really large numbers because what we're looking at here is the year because I want to see that trend. But, we're 300,000, we have 300,000 fewer unique page views, which means 300,000 times somebody went to the page multiple times in a given period. And so that's how that's reflected.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The other thing, just quickly, quickly that I'd like to point out on this page is that our users are coming to us from their desktop still, first and foremost. And while the mobile usage is very high, that's, something to be aware of, is we need to be agile in terms of providing information via our website on a desktop and via mobile devices.
So, question, so I see there's a little peak here between December and January.
Yeah, do you know when that was? That was when,
School's closed.
yeah, so there's a dip where school was closed, and then also you can see a peak toward the end of January. That was when school was closed because of severe weather, several days within a 2-week span. So people were coming to the site looking for information about closings. And actually, we see that on the social media data as well. If you look over to the next page, the Facebook data, there's 3 charts here. And you can see these peaks as well. It has to do with weekends and then, events that took place during the year. What I'd like to point out is that at the beginning of the school year, we were at just over 1,500 followers. And at the end of the school year, we're at 2,100, or just thereabouts. So I'm really happy to see that we're increasing in our fan base or our followership. But I'll point out too, this is kind of interesting, the big increase toward the end of January in our followers has to do with the weather updates again. So people saw that school was closed and they clicked on following the page so that they would continue to get updates. But we maintain them, so it's a good data point. We talked at length the last time that I met with you regarding the weekly bulletins. I did provide some further detailed information based on that conversation last time we met. We have quite a high number of either duplicate email addresses or blocked email addresses. Duplicate meaning there are siblings in the district, or there's a parent who is an employee and their child is in the district, so they'd be getting the email to both their personal and work email addresses. The system takes out that duplication so that families don't receive the communication multiple times. So I'm happy with these numbers. In the spirit of getting better, I continue to look at, how we can push these numbers up. We did do some pretty big changes to the weekly newsletter, which is what these stats are based on. And the open rate continues to be pretty, right around that 55 to 65% on average. So I am working to determine a completely new platform to deliver weekly bulletins next year. And actually, my plan is to do that through Final Site, which is our website service provider. So that would keep all of our content housed in one content management system, make things much more cohesive and streamlined. So I think that will be a really good fit for us. I am attending training in July with Final Site to learn how to do that and go ahead and implement that for the coming school year. One of the big benefits of doing that is it will remove the requirement to enter into Google Docs to receive information, Google Drive to receive information from our schools. You may notice that we have a lot of links to the information that we send to families. And a big piece of the feedback that I've heard is users don't necessarily want to have to log into Google Drive. It may not be the platform that they are familiar with or work in frequently. And a lot of companies have firewalls that won't, Google Drive isn't considered secure enough. So people are at work, this email comes through, they want to get into it, they can't because it's being blocked by their firewalls. So by doing this through Final Site, we'll be able to avoid that completely.
Now,
But it'll require quite a bit of training with the secretaries and the building administrators to make sure that we're following that process and not slipping into that behavior of just creating a link through Google Drive for those newsletters. In terms of what's next, I got some really great feedback from families and staff this year. Some of the things that are the main focus for me are the update to the delivery of the weekly bulletins, and then also working through a complete redesign of the staff page of our website, making a more two-way, a portal for more two-way communication, excuse me. So that's coming, and then also through working with Site Improve, there'll be a number of bigger changes to the website, preparing for next school year, which is the reason as well that I'm attending the training with the Final Site professionals.
Just one question on the weekly bulletin. I see, and you noted it in your report here, that you have this click here for district news. Where does that take you?
It takes us to takes the user to a bulletin that has district level news. It's primarily community events. So the building newsletters are very focused on what is happening for that building. So the Ben Franklin newsletter probably doesn't have a lot of similar information to the Pleasant View newsletter, but where there are those umbrella topics from the district that is in the newsletter with the link. So families who were getting into that newsletter, some of the feedback that we received was they just want to know what is happening next week at their child's school. And they were having to read through quite a bit of like district level content. So we pulled that into a link so that they didn't have to weed through that to get to it.
So if I'm a community member, maybe I want that information. Do I have access to it? Because I don't get a newsletter or a weekly bulletin. I don't have any kids in the school, so is that somewhere?
Yeah, each of the secretaries houses their weekly bulletins on their website, their school website. As a community member, the newsletters, the community at large is not a target audience for those newsletters. Not that they can't get into them and peruse them, but they would find them on the website at each of the school buildings.
And that link would be there?
And the link is there.
You mentioned that on Facebook you use Facebook email to communicate with parents a lot. What do you mean by Facebook email? You mean messaging?
No, it's literally an email. So on the page, when you have a page as opposed to a personal profile, there's an inbox. And actually there's a private messaging for personal pages as well. But what I'm referring to is our district page has an inbox. And so, for example, when school was closed one morning in January, I sent out the email and made the phone call and updated the website, and then I put a post out on Facebook, and I received inquiries via that inbox. It's a private email inbox about, like, is school going to be closed tomorrow, or just some of the other broader questions that family would have about the severe weather that was taking place. A lot of questions via 4K, like registration and such, came in response to posts that we had on Facebook as well. So,
Okay. Is that linked to your regular email? District email?
no, I mean, I have the Facebook page in my account, so it's up all the time on my desktop. It's how I monitor the social media, generally speaking. But yeah, I get a notification and I can see that there's a comment there and I can go in and respond to it.
I just want to make sure those are being saved for district email.
Yeah.
Because they're on
Yes,
Facebook. Yeah.
yes. I'd be happy to walk through it with you.
That's
It
okay.
looks very much like an inbox, so all of the communications are there to respond to.
definitely don't go into any great depth with anyone in that platform. It's typically just a place to direct someone to get information.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a spot on the website, or would they have to go to the individual school pages if they want to get newsletters, if they want to be on the mailing list? That was one of the things that I know we talked about in that communications meeting that we had with the consultant, was if, to make it easy for the community, for those people that want to be engaged, instead of having to go to the website, are they able to sign up somewhere? How would they become part of that? Just like a parent would get any of the emails.
Yeah, it's a great point. And we certainly could look at doing that as we look at updates for the website overall. One thing I should mention is that everything that is in that district newsletter is on the website. So for example, we have a community events page, and Lisa and I work together to make sure those flyers are, in adherence to our, our standards for those flyers. And then Lisa posts it to the website, and I post it to the newsletter, and it's the exact same content. So you're right, though, I mean, if there are community members who would like to have that sent to them as opposed to having to go out and get it, that would be a really easy update that could improve that two-way dialogue.
Put the opportunity out there. If they want to engage, then they can get that information pushed to them instead of having to go and find it all the time.
Right, yeah, so we just do an opt-in. Yeah, that's certainly something I could put on the list. It wouldn't be a difficult task.
Something to consider.
Any other comments or questions?
So, I just kind of poking around. I see we haven't updated the construction site that we have here on the building. It's kind of old. So how do you make sure everything's kind of updated?
Well, that's something that is really going to be a focus moving into the summer. Like I said, I'll go for training with Final Site in July. And I'm working with Luann and her team and all of the departments to update the content on the site, generally speaking.
And I guess, we know the calendar, the paper calendar is going away. So, the calendar is going to be the website calendar? That's it, really? Okay.
Yeah, it really
It's gonna be
is
improved, all right.
going to have more information than that printed calendar could ever provide, so. But we do have to be very deliberate about how we communicate where things are, so people can find what they need.
I'm unsure which calendar you're referencing. There's a PDF with all of the days off of school, and then there's also an online calendar on the homepage of the website.
I'm just looking.
Do you mean the events calendar, Mrs. Bukowski?
I'm looking.
I think she might mean events.
But you're really talking about the interactive one, or is that only available by school?
No, at the homepage of the district site, you'll see the calendar of events there.
Does it have all the athletic events too? Or just
You see it?
activity events?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
Does
question.
it have all the athletic events also, or just the activity events?
For the high school, so there's not a lot that takes place at the elementary, but at the middle school and the high school, they actually partner with what's called Our School. So when they go to the calendar and click on athletics, it links them to a third-party populated calendar. And the reason they do that is because it shows, the athletics are multi-district events, so it keeps all of the districts in our conference, for example, consistent with the same information as updates are being made.
Is that like a WIAA updated site, or?
I'd have to defer to Mr. Hine. I can't speak to that. I just know that we link out to it because our school is keeping that totally up to date with, rain dates and canceled games and changed locations of events because that's not necessarily always a Franklin district
Right.
decision,
It's like
so,
conference-wide. They show all the different.
yeah.
So if there's a
Athletic
wrong
events.
time posted or something, that would have been done by the third party, keeping track of that calendar update.
Right, and our calendar, so when you click on the athletics, it actually goes out to that calendar.
Okay. I see.
So the information is available, and the user wouldn't know that they left our site unless they looked up at the web browser, and when they click the back button, it brings them, I mean, it opens a separate tab so they can get back to our webpage very easily. One thing I will say, Linda, is that as we look at making these changes, we need to be diligent about communicating them to the target audiences as well, so they know where to find the information. So I, just kind of thinking about how you're navigating and wondering where things are, we can make sure that we're communicating that to our audiences as we make changes.
And I might also add that sometimes, I'll get to the calendar and I'll see an event, and it always has that little enticing more information button. I hit that, and I just get the same thing I got. There is no more information. I went, oh. So, but that's gonna change, right?
I'll work with
Okay,
the team, and yes, I would like for that to be a part of our updates.
okay.
Thank you for sharing your week.
Yeah, thank you,
And
thank
your-
you for having me.
your
It's been
artifacts.
coming up on a year, and it's really just been great. I thank you very much for your support and for having me today.
Thank you. Okay. Move on to item 8H, the Forest Park construction update. Mr. Milzer and Dr. Miller.
I'll just begin by saying we successfully closed school and provided professional development for our teachers off-site for a couple of days, 3 days, and then had them back in the new school, getting their classrooms. That went very, very well. So we're continuing some of our professional development this summer, and we will be ready. They're ready and they're excited to come back to this beautiful new school. Mr. Milzer has some more information about the physical aspects of the school.
What's left of it?
You may have noticed as you came in that our landscaper has put straw mats on the pile of dirt out there. We tried a couple of times seeding it to get grass to grow to hold it so it wouldn't erode, and it didn't work, so we ended up putting the straw mats on it to stop the erosion. The move of all the materials and equipment from the old Forest Park to the new Forest Park went very well. It was actually ahead of schedule. And furniture continues to arrive at this point, and equipment coming into the school, and some of it needs to be put together, some of it just needs to get to the right place in the building. So our custodians are working on that. They had a district-wide work day over there where all of the custodians in the district came and helped put together furniture and move it around to get it to the right places, and they made a lot of progress. On the old Forest Park, the demolition of the first part of the building began yesterday. The principal's office is a mess if you go over and look at it now. They're using an excavator to really, it just grabs the building and breaks it off, and then it sorts those things into a pile of metal and a pile of concrete, and all of those go different places once they start trucking it out. They aren't using explosives. I know there was a rumor at one point that, I don't know, we would be blowing the school up or something, but you don't implode a one-story building, so none of that is happening. Not even a wrecking ball, just the, yep. We moved everything that we needed to the new school, and everything else that's left in it was sold to the company that's tearing it down, and that's one of the reasons that they separate everything out, so that they can scrap the metal and get money for all of these different things, and they all get recycled. So that's what they'll be working on, and it'll take about 5 weeks for them to take the building down entirely until it's pretty much gone. And I think that's it.
So the day they began to demolish the school, I got word it was happening, and so I walked over there, and I was dressed like I typically dress for work, you know, and I got as close as I could, and the gentleman who was doing the excavating starts waving me over, because I was taking pictures, and I was a little nervous that he was gonna yell at me, because like, what are you doing here? But he was actually very nice, and I had a conversation with him about, you know, I just need to see this happen, that 30 years ago, I started working here, and it's been a great school, but it's time for a new school. He said, I tell you what, I'll move over here and I'll tear down the sign for you. So he did that, and I was able to get video of that. So I will share that with you on Friday. So it was a big moment. It's very, very noisy and destructive, but he was very kind to me and said, you know, this is the only day you're gonna be able to be here, because it is very dangerous on the site. We've done quite a bit to secure that area, and keep working with them to make sure that open areas are blocked so that people can't venture in there. It's just very, very dangerous to be near that area. So, but I'll share that video with you Friday, so you can take a look at how that was happening.
So in 5 weeks, the building's gone. What happens to the big dirt pile? Is that gonna be gone by school, or?
The plan is for the pile to be gone by the time school starts. So once the building's gone and that's excavated, they'll start moving dirt over there, and this pile will be part of that will come over there, and it'll raise that up. And part of that will be multi-use playfields and a parking lot and a parent drop-off loop will be over there.
So the project would be closed out by December, or when would you expect that?
Definitely by December. Yeah, I would hope earlier than that. We're hoping to get all of this work done and the final lift on the asphalt on the drive by the time school starts. It's been really rainy so far, so not holding out a lot of hope, but that was the plan.
Thank you. Item 8I, Treasurer's Report, is available in the Board Docs Library. And we'll move on to 9, School Board Liaison Reports. 9B, Board Liaison Reports. Do we have any liaison reports?
I did meet with Mr. Cohen and Mr. Reuter a couple of weeks ago to set up a schedule for further meetings. I don't have much to report other than that.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. I have a short one. Ms. Ellerhausen, I spoke with her about teacher contracts. They go out per state statute on May 15th and for the teachers, and they were due back on June 15th, and I spoke with her on June 12th, and as of that date, 99% of them were back.
They're all back.
They're all back. Okay, so that's good news. And also on the 12th, we were approaching 40 new certified staff hires for next year, with 10 openings to fill at that time. And I think I heard you talking today, you might even be less than 10 now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nothing else, no other shoes drop, we are almost staffed
Great news.
on the teaching level.
Okay. And we're moving on to begin filling support staff vacancies at the schools for next year. So that's my personnel report. Any other liaison reports? Okay. Then we'll move on to school and community engagement visits, which probably don't have many of those, but.
Oh, I drove in to the fence and saw them working in the middle school. I'm the middle school liaison, so I wanted to check that out before I came to the meeting, and then I came to the meeting.
It's
So,
pushing it.
I attended the Franklin Senior Honors Night. And was fortunate enough to be able to give, to hand out 2 scholarships to kids, so,
A golfing scholarship?
yes.
Great.
We were all at graduation.
Yes, we were. Yeah. And then,
I might just add that I've completed my visits with the senior citizens in the community. Today was my last visit with the residents over at the monastery apartments. So I've had an opportunity to talk with the senior citizens in the community, hopefully getting information from them about how our recreation department can offer more programs for them. They were very kind.
great. So it's been a while since our last board meeting. So the day after our last board meeting, I went to the 4K meeting at Pleasant View, and there were 25 parents in attendance there for that. So I thought that was pretty good attendance. They were excited.
I actually attended the Ben Franklin one.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
How many
awesome.
did you have there, parents?
May have been about 15.
15 spots? That's pretty good. Some of my parents were, had older children in the school, but I'd say it was half and half, so. And then right after that, well, we both went to the Inroads presentation at Franklin High School. And the presentations were everything from on testing and student charitable events and raising chickens. And, yeah, raising chickens
Got my
and
permit.
and playing sports, you know, properly playing sports, and I didn't get, some of them were pretty crowded, so you couldn't talk to everybody, but it was good
Wow.
presentations.
Your interests are amazing, yeah.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
Some are pretty deep and some are pretty, it's amazing how they come up with them.
Yeah, that's good. Any other reports? And then, item 10, school board meeting debriefing. Any comments?
Yes, I have a comment.
Yeah.
I'd like to comment on a letter of reprimand I received from our president, Janet Evans. When we discussed self-insurance back at the beginning of the year, I reached out to a colleague to get some information regarding self-insurance in the school arena, which I didn't have any experience in. I had business experience in self-insurance, but not as far as school districts, so I did some research. And I handed some of that research to Judy and Jim. It was an email I received. And then I believe it was a month or so ago, I made a comment to Judy, and Janet was present, regarding the same, and I can't even recall what the comment was. Then, on May 12th, I received a letter in the mail that I considered a letter of reprimand, and I'm going to read it to everybody. I'm writing because of the email dated March 13th, 2019, you distributed at the board table during the meeting on April 10th regarding your contact with an insurance advisor from M3 Insurance on behalf of Franklin Public Schools, along with several personal comments regarding the same. Claude, as board president, it is my obligation to bring to your attention that it is improper for an individual board member to represent to anyone that they are, as individuals, have authority to act on behalf of the board, the district, or administration, unless authorized by the board to do so. Also, it's inappropriate for an individual board member to directly communicate with vendors or bidders regarding any school business, again, without prior authorization of the board as a whole. Doing so would be extremely rare, as we have our own district professionals who we put our confidence in to do this work. The board as a whole could direct our professionals to reach out to specific vendor if desired. I also want to mention to you that use of personal email for board business is not advisable, and it is recommended those emails be forwarded to your district email, especially in the event of an open records request. And then there's part of this that doesn't make sense. I think there's a wrong word in it. These are guidelines of board efficiency and conduct where board development through WASB or mentorship from a long-term board member or board colleague might be helpful to you. Claude, please let me know if you would like to discuss the matter. Well, I received this via mail, and I didn't exactly know what I was going to do when I received it, but I have a response that I'd like to also read to the board. I reject any implication of wrongdoing contained in your May 12th letter on Franklin Public School letterhead. Your assertion that it is inappropriate for an individual board member to directly communicate with vendors or bidders regarding any school business is thoroughly inaccurate and miscategorized regarding my communications with M3 Insurance. Your letter infers that any contact I have with my previous business contact and colleague at M3 Insurance would be on official district business. I reject that inference. In addition to personal connections and friendships, my communications with M3 were based on fact-finding and research directly related to potential Franklin Public School activities. This activity was nothing more than data gathering to support ongoing research by the district administrators. More importantly, these activities are wholly within my power as steward for financial responsibility as a board member, and one of the reasons I believe I was elected to this position. Acting within my capacity to provide the best advice, guidance, and/or oversight to Franklin Public Schools, it is my objective to secure the best possible financial situation for the district. To that end, my actions that you personally reprimanded also met our board policy 8100 to promote public interest and support at all levels of government for education and seek adequate financial support for the schools. Board members will advise the district administrator and each other of community reaction to school programs and policies. Additionally, it is my responsibility, and the board's in general, to be as fully informed as possible. Any external research, fact-finding, and other activities investigating financial implications of board decisions should be a regular activity and, frankly, an expectation of our board. The fact that this activity is expressly disapproved of, or in your words, inappropriate, is counterintuitive. Also, that outside of board resolution, as president, I don't believe you have the authority to officially reprimand individual board members. I would request that you retract your statements. With my almost 40 years' experience in human resources, most recently as Vice President of Human Resources, it is my experience that before any employee that I was associated with received a disciplinary letter to their file, or in this case, a reprimand letter, it is standard practice and just plain common courtesy to sit down and have a discussion with the individual regarding the issues. The fact that I was not contacted prior to receiving a letter of this kind shocked and disappointed me. As a board, we have to work as a team and as individuals, with communication between one another being a key ingredient. A process like this does not contribute to that end. That's your copy. Thank you.
Okay. That was not part of a board debriefing. If this board would like to bring this up as an agenda item under policy and board handbook at the next meeting, we can do that. Does any board member have an interest in doing so? Hearing none. If there's no other board debriefing, we'll move on to the next item, which is future agenda items. We have annual academic standard adoptions on 7/10. We have 2019-20 budget draft number 1 approval, 7/10. We have seclusion and restraint report on 8/21. And we have an at-risk report on October 19th. And then also the annual meeting of the electors on August 21st, 2019. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Larson, is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Gamble. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at